What if you could be grateful for your addiction? That means you have to quit alcohol or you have to quit your addiction and overcome it. But what if all of that work led you to a greater version of yourself? That'd be pretty amazing, right? Welcome back to the Sober Web. I'm Clark, a recovered alcoholic. After battling alcoholism for 13 years, I got sober for good on October 1st, 2017. And I am honestly so grateful for my alcoholism, because without it, I never would have known what had to change, what had to heal, despite the fact that it took me 13 years to figure it all out. And one really important thing that I learned during the process of healing my alcoholism, which I hope speaks to you, is that I wasn't a weak person. I wasn't a lost cause. I wasn't someone lacking strength and resilience. And this is something I really hope that you hear, because we beat ourselves up and we can't stop once we start. Whatever the it is, we can't stop it once we start. Fill in the blank for yourself in your journey. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you don't have strength and resilience to do something about it. Because if you think about your journey with alcohol, if I think about mine, how many times did I beat my body and my mind and my spirit and my soul up every single day, every single night with alcohol? And then to get up and still take care of business, take care of my family, go to work, do multiple jobs, and then drink at night, black out, and get up and do it all over again. That actually takes a very strong and resilient soul to make all of that happen. And one thing my alcoholism proved to me as I got away from it was that I was so much stronger and so much more resilient than I ever could have imagined. Because once you quit for good, or you quit and then you stay sober one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month, 1 year, whatever it is, and you get through the harder parts of life as they're thrown at you and you still stay sober, it adds to your strength and your resilience that you never knew you had, because you realize you can handle it all without alcohol, without whatever it is that you were addicted to. And that's a really important thing for, I hope, everyone to hear that's watching this, because I know how hopeless it can feel. I know how much guilt and shame there is involved with all of it. But you are stronger than you think. You are more resilient than you think, even when you feel weak, even when, unfortunately, you're being told that you're weak. And if you can just find a way to stop drinking or stop using, or just to quit the addiction and start working on getting sober, you can prove to yourself just how strong and resilient you are. And without alcoholism in my life, I never honestly would have realized that for myself. And then another thing that I probably never could have done without having battled alcoholism for 13 years and then getting out of it was realizing that I had to change. Not that anything was wrong with me per se, but how I was dealing with life, how I was running away from my emotions, how I was afraid to deal with stressors that would trigger me, it had to change. If I wanted to live a more fulfilling, authentic life where I could be the best parent that I could be the best human that I could be, that I could try to show my son that there was a different way of dealing with life, even when life was hard, something had to change. And sure, there was the physical aspect of putting down the bottle once and for all, but ultimately, alcohol for me just represented that something deeper was going on within my soul, or like people thought there's a void within me that I was trying to fill with alcohol that obviously never would have been filled, because ultimately I needed to face emotions and fear and pain and grief and trauma and toxicity from the past in order to change how all of that manifested in my life, which was through alcohol and which was through my alcoholism. And this is where we can kind of start changing our mentality, our perspective about our struggles with alcohol or our struggles with anything. How would we know that something has to change if we don't have a physical representation of us dealing with life in a healthy way? So we can hate the idea that we are an alcoholic or that we were an alcoholic. We can hate the idea and beat ourselves up that we're addicted to something. But what if we start looking at it as like a glass half full kind of thing of like, all right, I've got this problem, I've got this struggle. What does it mean in terms of me healing and becoming a better human? What do I have to change? What do I have to heal in order to get away from this addiction once and for all, so that I can actually become the person that I want to be, so that I can actually do the things that I want to do? I hope that makes sense. Hit the like button if so, and especially hit the like button if you believe that maybe how we use alcohol or maybe addiction in general represents something deeper going on within us. And then the next thing that my alcoholism gave me, believe it or not, was hope. Each and every day as I got sober and I stayed sober through really, really hard things. It gave me hope that I didn't have to live my life in fear anymore. It gave me hope that maybe I actually wouldn't be anxious about everything at some point in my life, and I wouldn't obsess and constantly think about what I was doing wrong or how I was letting people down or how I was weak, because that's not really a fun way to live when you're always stuck in that kind of hopeless negative mentality. By surviving my alcoholism and getting sober, it gave me hope to actually improve my life, and that maybe my dreams could come back to life, and that maybe the things that I wanted and needed with my life would actually be possible. Whereas before, in the throes of alcoholism, I just was always despondent, and I was depressed, and I was honestly a victim, always wondering, why me? Why do I have to struggle with this? Why is my life not going the way that I want? Why do I constantly feel like I'm taking one step forward and two steps back? But by quitting and understanding my alcoholism and honestly kind of accepting my alcoholism and forgiving myself for all the mistakes that I supposedly made, it gave me hope that I could, like I already said, I could change and do the necessary work in order to become a better parent and a better human and a better version of Clark. And I hope that that resonated with you, because you don't have to feel hopeless, and you can find hope once again in your life. You just have to give yourself a chance, my friend. Another way that alcoholism leveled up my life or made me a better person was that it offered me humility. And primarily what I mean by that is it forced me to accept that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit that I had a problem. It's okay to admit that there is a problem. It's okay to reach out to loved ones or friends and just say, hey, I need help. I don't know what to do. Can you just offer me some help somehow? I've never considered myself a prideful person, but honestly, growing up, I lacked a lot of self-confidence. I was very insecure. I was always afraid of letting people down. And I would say that my ego and my pride, for the longest of times, I didn't want to ask for help. I don't want to ask my parents for money. I don't want to ask other people to help me because I'm a grown-up or I'm a man and I need to do it all on my own. And then you start dealing with something like alcoholism and you feel like you can beat it on your own and you don't need help, because it goes back to that guilt and shame conversation where you don't want to admit there is a problem, because God forbid people might think there's something wrong with you or that you're a diseased person they don't want to talk to. But because of my alcoholism, I've learned how to ask for help in my life, even after being sober for 6 years at the time of making this video. It made me realize that my ego was holding me back and actually hurting my life, because the ego doesn't want you to ask for help. The ego wants you to stay in addiction. It wants you to be miserable. It doesn't want you to find peace. And the only way that we can honestly beat alcoholism is with the help of others. That humility is a great way to start just slowly breaking the grasp that addiction or alcoholism might have on you. Because the ego and not asking for help will not get you anywhere. There's no reason that you have to do this entire thing on your own, and asking for help, there's no shame in it. And so I hope that you know that maybe it's okay to ask for help, and that you can ask for help and you deserve help, my friend. And now, not to get too woo on you, but something really, really important that I've learned in my sobriety because of my alcoholism was how to forgive. And if you notice a trend here, there's a lot of conversation around guilt and shame, which are two driving factors in addiction in general, in my opinion. So many of us continue to drink or use or stay addicted because the shame and guilt of our decision yesterday exacerbates how we deal with it all today. So we just continue drinking and drinking, or using and using and using, because we ultimately can't let yesterday go. We can't forgive ourselves for the mistakes that happen because we're stuck in that guilt and shame cycle. But by getting away from the alcohol once and for all, I learned how to forgive myself and realize that the past is gone. I literally can't do anything about it. And if I give power to the past, it will control the rest of my life, and it will keep me stuck, maybe not necessarily in alcohol or in alcoholism, but in some type of addictive mentality where I think I deserve to suffer because of the past. Hit the like button if that resonates with you in any way. But by finally breaking free of alcohol and using alcoholism almost like a mirror, I began to see where I had to forgive myself, and also where I was not even wrong, where I did not have to shoulder guilt and shame about something that happened in the past because I didn't make any mistakes. There were certain things that weren't my fault that I made my fault. Also, by getting out of the throes of alcoholism and getting sober, I was able to start learning how to forgive other people. Not necessarily for wrongs that they did me, but for pain that I associated with them in one way or another that maybe fed some type of resentment within me that drove my drinking. And friends, forgiveness is maybe one of the most powerful tools that you can use to free yourself from the past, regardless of the past. And if you can't learn to forgive yourself, even when you quit alcohol or you give up your addiction, you might find that you're still stuck in this mentality where you feel like you deserve to be punished or you deserve to suffer, but you don't. You're just human. We're all human. Yes, we all make mistakes. We all screw up at times, but we don't have to punish ourselves every single day for that. And we don't have to use addiction or alcohol or drugs or anything as the tool of punishment. But if you can learn to forgive yourself, you can just further break the hold of the addiction and the mentality around that addiction, so much more on top of all the other things that I've already talked about in this video. This is the most important thing that I have learned because of my alcoholism. It made me aware of addiction in my family. It forced me to study my ancestry to see the trend of how addiction in general has impacted other people and how it was passed on to me, which kind of goes back to the very first thing I talked about, which forced me to become aware of the things that had to change. I realized that I could undo and even break that addictive strain in my family so that my son does not struggle with it in the same ways. So I could teach him how to have a healthy relationship with alcohol if he chooses to drink, how to become aware of how we use anything, alcohol, drugs, social media, TV, work, money, sex, any of it, how we use it to escape reality. By doing all of this work, by battling the alcoholism for 13 years and then getting out of it and doing the work around all of it, I get to live my life in a different way that sets an example for him and for others, that we don't have to use things to escape reality, that we can actually end the addictive strain in our family once and for all, and we can actually somehow change the future and make it better. And I know that's probably a little woo-woo, it's a little bit out there. There are books like It Didn't Start With You that talk about how addiction runs in families and what we have to do to break that addictive strain. But it's totally possible to reset our DNA, in essence, that we start living our life in a different way where we don't let fear, grief, trauma of the past, toxicity of the past dictate how we deal with life right now. And it's not just about, changing our DNA or resetting our DNA. It's also about just finding a healthier way of coping with life when life is hard. And if it wasn't for my alcoholism, I never would have started doing any of that work in order to become a better parent for my son, so I could model a certain way of life, a certain way of facing life for him so that he could do the same thing down the road. And that's what I hope for you. There can be light at the end of the tunnel. There can be hope at the end of the tunnel. You deserve a chance to live life the way that you want to live. And even if you have fear around being an alcoholic or being an addict, change your perspective and your mentality about it. It's actually an opportunity and kind of like a launch pad to send you to a different level of your life and to become a better person. I know maybe, perhaps right here, right now, it doesn't feel that way, but if you can just find the courage that is within you to take the necessary steps to get sober and stay sober and start doing some work around all of it, in the years to come, you will see that it was all worth it. And I hope that you too will eventually be grateful for your own struggles with alcohol or your own struggles with addiction. If you found today's video valuable, I hope that you hit the like button. If anything spoke to you, please, in the comments below, let me know what resonated or hit home the most. But also in the comments, let me know your thoughts and maybe what you want to talk more about in the future. And if you really found today's video valuable, I'd be honored if you would share it with as many people as possible so that others can hear this message and they can also know that they are not defined by their struggles with addiction or alcoholism or whatever it can be, that we can actually become better humans in spite of our struggles with things like alcohol or drugs or whatever the addiction is. And then I would be honored to be part of your recovery journey, and I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel so that I can continue to offer you hope and clarity on your recovery journey. And after you hit that subscribe button, just do me a favor and hit the bell. That way you're notified when I release a video every single week. Until I see you again, if you are considering getting sober, if you're trying to stay sober and wondering why you should stay sober, I hope that you'll check out this video about some unexpected benefits of quitting alcohol and overcoming addiction. There's a lot of great little tidbits and nuggets in this one, so please watch that next. But until next time, much love and much life, my friend. I'm Clark with the Sober Web, and I'll talk to you really soon.